The U.S. Navy deployed dozens of vessels in World War I, from massive dreadnoughts and destroyers to submarine chasers and patrol boats. This video breaks down every important ship they put into the Atlantic theater. Let's begin with battleships. The dreadnoughts. USS Delaware, completed in 1910. This was America's first true dreadnought, armed with 10 12-inch guns and 5 turrets. She served as flagship of the Atlantic Fleet and provided crucial gunnery training for thousands of sailors before they shipped out to the war zone. USS Florida, sister ship to the Delaware. She represented a leap forward in American naval power with her all-big gun armament. Fast and well-protected, she conducted convoy escort operations and trained gun crews in the dangerous waters off the East Coast. USS Wyoming, mounting 12 powerful 12-inch guns. The Wyoming was one of the most heavily armed American battleships of her era. She joined the British Grand Fleet as part of Battleship Division 9, serving in the North Sea to contain the German High Seas Fleet. USS Arkansas, commissioned in 1912. Arkansas carried the same devastating 12-gun broadside as her sister Wyoming. She operated with the Royal Navy in Scapa Flow, enduring the brutal North Atlantic weather while standing ready to engage the German battle line. USS New York, the first U.S. battleship to mount 14-inch guns, giving her the ability to strike targets at unprecedented ranges. Her powerful main battery made her a valuable addition to the Grand Fleet, where she served alongside British dreadnoughts hunting for German raiders. USS Texas, sister to New York, Texas became the first U.S. battleship to launch an aircraft from her deck in 1919. She escorted convoys across the submarine-infested Atlantic and provided gunfire support. Her massive 14-inch shells capable of devastating any surface raider. USS Nevada, revolutionary for being the first American battleship with triple gun turrets and all-or-nothing armor protection. Her innovative design influenced every battleship that followed, and she served with distinction, protecting vital convoy routes from U-boat attacks. USS Oklahoma, Nevada's sister ship, she shared the same groundbreaking armor scheme and 10 14-inch guns. She operated primarily in U.S. waters, training the massive influx of recruits and protecting the East Coast from potential German surface raids. USS Pennsylvania, flagship of the Atlantic Fleet, Pennsylvania mounted 12 14-inch guns and displaced over 31,000 tons. Her presence alone deterred German naval operations, and she served as the nerve center for coordinating American naval strategy. USS Arizona, sister to Pennsylvania, she represented the pinnacle of American dreadnought design with her massive firepower and speed. Though she never fired her guns in anger during WWI, she provided essential training and patrol duties along the eastern seaboard. Next on the list is pre-Dreadnought battleships. USS Connecticut, the lead ship of her class, Connecticut was already outdated by 1917, but still served as a training vessel. Her 4 12-inch guns and 8 8-inch guns made her a floating classroom for thousands of sailors learning naval gunnery. USS Louisiana, one of the Connecticut-class ships, she had circumnavigated the globe with the Great White Fleet in 1907. By WWI, she was relegated to training duties, teaching raw recruits the fundamentals of naval warfare. USS Kansas, armed with a mixed battery of large and medium guns, Kansas represented the pre-dreadnought philosophy of multiple caliber armament. She spent the war years training gun crews and engineers in Chesapeake Bay. USS Minnesota, another veteran of the Great White Fleet, Minnesota's service in WWI was limited to training operations. Her experienced crew helped transform civilian volunteers into combat-ready sailors. USS Vermont, the last of the Connecticut class to be completed, Vermont served as a training ship throughout the war. Her obsolete design made her unsuitable for frontline service, but her value in preparing men for combat was immeasurable. USS New Hampshire, armed with 4 12-inch and 8 8-inch guns, she represented the twilight of the pre-dreadnought era. She spent WWI as a gunnery training ship, her experienced crew passing on decades of naval knowledge. Continuing with destroyers. USS Cassin, lead ship of her class, the Cassin mounted 4 4-inch guns and was capable of 29 knots. She hunted U-boats off the Irish coast and dropping depth charges and escorting vulnerable merchant convoys through the western approaches. USS Cummings, a nimble flush-deck destroyer designed for high-speed anti-submarine warfare. Armed with torpedoes and depth charges, she prowled the convoy routes, her crew constantly scanning for the telltale periscope wake of a German submarine. USS Tucker, one of the first destroyers to reach European waters after America's entry into the war. Fast and deadly, she could dash ahead of convoys to investigate sonar contacts, her deck guns ready to engage any surfaced U-boat. USS Wadsworth, a Caldwell-class destroyer famous for ramming and sinking a German U-boat in May 1918. Her aggressive captain drove his ship directly into the submarine, sending it to the bottom in one of the war's most dramatic destroyer actions. USS Conyngham, a workhorse destroyer that logged thousands of miles escorting convoys across the Atlantic. Her crew lived in cramped, wet conditions, constantly battling fatigue as they protected the vital merchant ships carrying troops and supplies to France. USS Porter, assigned to the U-boat hunting patrols off the coast of Ireland. Armed with torpedoes and a new type of depth charge, she was a deadly threat to any German submarine operating in her patrol zone. USS Sampson, a Sampson-class destroyer that pioneered aggressive anti-submarine tactics. She carried the latest underwater detection equipment and was one of the first U.S. destroyers to score a confirmed U-boat kill. USS Fanning achieved fame for assisting in the capture of U-58 in November 1917. Working in coordination with USS Nicholson, she forced the German submarine to the surface and took the crew prisoner. USS Jarvis, a flush-deck destroyer that epitomized American mass production. Built quickly and in large numbers, destroyers like Jarvis flooded the Atlantic, making it increasingly dangerous for German submarines to operate. USS Benham, one of dozens of nearly identical destroyers that formed the backbone of the anti-submarine campaign. Her crew worked brutal shifts, maintaining constant vigilance against the underwater threat. USS Shaw, armed with 4 4-inch guns and 12 torpedo tubes, she was built for speed and hitting power. She escorted dozens of convoys, her presence alone often enough to keep U-boats submerged and ineffective. USS Caldwell, lead ship of a prolific class, she introduced the flush deck design that became standard for American destroyers. Her shallow draft allowed her to operate close to shore, hunting U-boats in coastal waters. USS Downs, a Caldwell-class destroyer that spent months on grueling patrol duty off the French coast. Her crew barely slept, knowing that a single missed periscope sighting could mean the loss of an entire convoy. USS McKee, one of the last destroyers to join the war, arriving in European waters in late 1918. Though her combat service was brief, she represented the industrial might of America, cranking out warships faster than Germany could sink them. Let's move on to cruisers. USS Seattle, an armored cruiser displacing over 14,000 tons and armed with 4 10-inch guns. She escorted troopship convoys, her heavy guns providing protection against any German surface raiders that might attempt to intercept the vulnerable transports. USS Charleston, sister to Seattle, she served primarily on convoy escort duties. Her thick armor belt and powerful main battery made her a formidable opponent for any German cruiser attempting to break out into the Atlantic. USS Pueblo, one of the Denver-class light cruisers, armed with 10 5-inch guns. Fast and agile, she could screen larger battleships or hunt down enemy scouts, her speed allowing her to chase down most opponents. USS Birmingham, a light cruiser that pioneered naval aviation by launching Eugene Ely in the first shipboard takeoff in 1910. By WWI, she was escorting convoys and patrolling for U-boats, her shallow draft allowing coastal operations. USS Chester, a scout cruiser designed for high-speed reconnaissance. Armed with 2 5-inch guns and capable of 26 knots, she could dash ahead of the fleet to locate enemy vessels and report their position. USS Salem, another scout cruiser, she spent the war hunting for German commerce raiders. Her long range and good seakeeping made her ideal for extended patrols across the vast Atlantic. USS Huntington, an armored cruiser that served as flagship for convoy operations. Her spacious accommodations allowed her to carry additional staff officers who coordinated the complex movements of merchant vessels. USS Frederick, one of the older protected cruisers pressed back into service when war broke out. Though her armor was light, her guns were adequate for patrol duties and training inexperienced crews. Next on the list is submarines. USS E-1, one of America's early submarines. The E-1 displaced just 287 tons and had a crew of 20. She patrolled the East Coast, training submarine crews and testing new tactics that would prove valuable in future conflicts. USS K-1, a coastal submarine armed with 4 torpedo tubes. Small and cramped, she could barely cross the Atlantic, but she provided essential training for submariners learning their dangerous trade. USS L-1, displacing 450 tons, the L-class represented a significant improvement in American submarine design. She could dive deeper and stay submerged longer, making her a more effective patrol vessel. USS L-10, one of 11 L-class boats built during the war years. Though none saw combat against German forces, they provided crucial experience for the crews who would man more advanced submarines in future wars. USS N-1, an improved coastal submarine with better range and habitability. She conducted patrol operations along the Atlantic coast, constantly drilling her crew in attack procedures. USS O-1, one of the O-class submarines that entered service near the war's end. With 6 torpedo tubes and improved diesel engines, she represented the cutting edge of American submarine technology. USS R-1, the first of a large class of fleet submarines. Though too late for WWI combat, the R-class boats incorporated lessons learned from the U-boat campaign and would serve for decades. Continuing with Submarine Chasers. SC-1, the first of over 400 wooden-hulled submarine chasers mass-produced for anti-U-boat warfare. At just 110 feet long and armed with depth charges, these tiny vessels were the terriers of the anti-submarine campaign. SC-48, one of dozens deployed to European waters, she prowled the channel hunting for U-boats. Her listening equipment could detect submarine engines at close range, allowing her to call in destroyers for the kill. SC-128, based out of Plymouth, England, she conducted hundreds of patrols in the western approaches. Her crew of 27 lived in miserable conditions, constantly soaked by spray and exhausted from endless watches. SC-209, operating off the coast of France, she worked in coordination with Allied vessels to create anti-submarine barriers. Her shallow draft allowed her to pursue U-boats into coastal waters where larger ships couldn't follow. Let's move on to patrol boats and gunboats. USS Wanderer, a former yacht converted into a patrol vessel, armed with light guns and depth charges. She patrolled coastal waters, searching for U-boats attempting to mine American harbors or attack coastal shipping. USS Christabel, another converted yacht, she represented America's desperate need for patrol vessels in 1917. Hastily armed and commissioned, she helped fill the gap until purpose-built warships could be constructed. USS Isabel, a small gunboat that served in the Caribbean, protecting the approaches to the Panama Canal. Her presence deterred potential German raiders from attempting to damage this vital strategic asset. USS Sacramento, an elderly gunboat recalled from retirement when war broke out. Though slow and lightly armed, she provided patrol coverage along the East Coast where U-boat attacks were a constant threat. Next on the list is auxiliary vessels. USS Henderson, a large transport ship capable of carrying over 4,000 troops across the Atlantic. She made multiple crossings, delivering the American Expeditionary Force to France despite the constant U-boat threat. USS Mount Vernon, formerly the German liner Kronprinzessin Cecilia, seized when America entered the war. Converted to a troop ship, she transported tens of thousands of doughboys to Europe, surviving a torpedo hit in September 1918. USS Leviathan, the largest American transport of WWI, formerly the German passenger liner Vaterland. At over 54,000 tons, she could carry an entire division in a single crossing, making her a prime U-boat target. Finally, we have specialized vessels. USS Conyngham, a monitor-type warship with a single massive 15-inch gun. Though too slow for fleet operations, she provided coastal defense and could demolish any shore fortification with her enormous shells. USS San Francisco, a mine-laying cruiser converted to carry hundreds of naval mines. She laid defensive minefields along the East Coast and participated in the massive North Sea mine barrage. USS Aroostook, a mine layer that helped create the North Sea Mine Barrage, a massive field of over 70,000 mines. This audacious project aimed to seal off the North Sea and trap the German fleet in port. USS Baltimore, a mine layer that worked in coordination with British forces. The monotonous and dangerous work of laying mines required precise navigation and exposed the crew to U-boat attack. USS Bushy, a repair and salvage vessel that could lift damaged ships and patch holes below the waterline. Her crew performed miracles, returning torpedoed vessels to service that would otherwise have been total losses. USS Bridgeport, a hospital ship marked with large red crosses. She carried wounded soldiers back to America, providing medical care during the long Atlantic crossing.